Guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight for the learning of Pirkei Avot. As we get ready for Shavuot, Baruch Hashem, this is the right way to get ready for Chag HaShavuot. As you know, it says Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah. So before receiving the Torah, we have to make sure that our Derech Eretz is proper. And Pirkei Avot is all about Derech Eretz. But tonight, we're going to see some really incredible things about who were our Avot that we're talking about, Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers. So we're going to mention certain things about some great tzaddikim and hopefully learn many lessons that they have to teach us. Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. So B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach. First of all, we'd like to thank our hosts, Mr. and Mrs. Isaac and Esther Soleimani. Thank you very much for always opening your door to our house, to our shul, and to our shiur, Tizkul Mitzvot. And thank you to our sponsors, the Saidian family sponsoring Lili Nishmat, Shmuel ben Chizkiah. May his neshama go high in Gan Eden. Okay, so says the Mishnah. Here we go. We're in Perek Shlishi, third chapter of Pirkei Avot. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa Omer. So we're going to be starting with Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. Now, just to give a little bit of an introduction to who was this great tzaddik, Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. I can't even begin to tell you, we mention a name like this, who are we talking about? It's unbelievable. So, first of all, the Gemara tells us that this man was a man that was very successful in his tefillot, in his prayers. The Gemara tells us multiple occasions, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai had a son that was sick, and he needed help. He needed a refuah shlema for his son. So he came to who? Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa davened, and he had a refuah shlema. Same thing with Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel's son had fever. It was very high. He needed help. Who they go to? Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. He davened and he prayed. They asked the other great tzaddikim, how come, you guys are tremendous tzaddikim? Why is it that you need Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa for this? So they said, because we are like servants of the king, that we come into the palace every so often. Every now and then we walk into the palace. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa serves the king every day. He's like in there every single day. So therefore, when he asks for something from the king grants him his requests. So Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa was an incredibly special tzaddik. So much so that the Gemara tells us that Hashem announces, Kol ha'olam kulo nizon bishvil chanina bni. The whole entire world gets its sustenance and gets its parnasah because of Chanina, my son. Now, Rabbi Chanina himself was incredibly poor. He had very little. It says, Chanina bni dailo bekav charuvim me'erev Shabbat le'erev Shabbat. Rabbi Chanina only had one basket of charuvim from Friday to Friday. That was the extent of his parnasah, a basket of carobs. You know what carobs, right? How do you say carobs in Farsi? You know? Yeah. What? No? You know what I'm talking about, carobs. So that's right, exactly. So he had carobs. He had carobs from Friday to Friday. That was it, a basket of carobs for his entire family. The famous story goes that his wife was very supportive of him, of what he was doing, but they really had nothing. And the wife would heat up the oven on Friday to let smoke out to give the appearance as if something was baking in the oven, but there was nothing baking in the oven. One time a lady came to her and said, "What are you making? There's nothing in here." And Hashem made a miracle for her that she opened up the door and the oven door, and she saw a whole full oven of chalot, and Hashem didn't want her to be embarrassed, but they really had nothing. So one time she told her husband, "Listen, you pray so well. Pray to Hashem that He should send us something, that we should have parnasah." So Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa prayed, and I'm sure you're familiar with the story, right? He got a piece of gold appeared at the front of his door. So the Gemara says that night he dreamt about his portion in Olam Haba, in the world to come, and he saw a table with only 3 legs, and it was missing the 4th one. So he realized that was the leg that came to him. So he realizes he's losing his Olam Haba because of this gold. So he prayed that Hashem should take back the gold, and Hashem took it back to Olam Haba. And the Gemara says that the miracle of Hashem taking back the gold is even greater than Hashem giving the gold in the first place from Olam Haba, which is an amazing thing. So this was who we're talking about. Another famous Gemara. The Gemara says that his daughter one time, by mistake, put instead of oil into the Shabbat candles, vinegar. So there's vinegar there. So he made a statement. He said to her, don't worry. Mi she'amar l'shemen ve'idlak, yomar l'chometz ve'idlak. Whoever said that the oil should be flammable and should light, can also say to the vinegar that it should light a fire as well. And she put in wicks and lit it, and it lit Shabbat candles. Very miraculous. Just give you one more. The Gemara tells us about Rabbi Mendoza that there was once an animal called an arvad. It doesn't really say what an arvad is, but anyone who walked by the hole of this little animal, this animal would bite them and they would get hurt. And he said, where is it? So they showed him where it was, and he put his foot right at the hole of the arvad, and the arvad bit his foot, and it died. So it died. So he took it, he pulled it out of its hole, dead. He brought it to the Bet Midrash, and he told everybody, you see, lo ha'arvad memit, ela hachet memit. It's not the arvad that kills anybody, it's the sin that kills the person. That this guy, unfortunately, doesn't have zechuyot, so this thing sends itself to him, and that's why he dies. But somebody that doesn't have that, the opposite, that creature will die. So just to understand. What?
How long ago this rabbi was?
This is about 2,000 years ago. Yeah. This is at the end of the Second Temple. Yeah. They were a little bit after. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was actually after him. Yeah, a little bit in the next generation. He was in between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the earlier Tanaim. So he's a very important person, Rabbi Chaim Mendoza, in the entire Shas. I mean, the stories go on and on and on and on about it. It doesn't end. One time, again, they were dirt poor. One time they found outside of their house chickens. People left chickens in front of his home. Now, he could use it. And they also lay eggs. So he said, no, we have mitzvah to return the lost object. He took the chickens inside, and they started laying eggs, and he watched over the eggs, and they grew into baby chicks. And then they became big chickens, and they laid eggs, and then they laid eggs, and so on. He had a farm full of chickens of somebody else's chickens. He said, this is getting crazy. He sold them all, and he bought 2 goats with all of those chickens. Eventually, somebody came, they walked by, and they said, over here, this is the spot where I lost my chickens. He overheard them. He comes out with these 2 goats and says, these are your chickens. Right here. You give it to them. Oops. Sorry. Right here. Sorry, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry. Okay. So anyway, this is this big tzaddik. So what does he have to teach us, Rabotai? So we have a little intro about him. Let's see what he has to say. So it says like this: Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa Omer, Kol she'irat chet'o kodemet lechokmato, chokmato mitkayemet. V'kol shechokhmato kodemet li'irat chet'o, en chokmato mitkayemet. Okay, so he says, any person that his fear of sin comes before his wisdom. So in other words, he has, first of all, fear of God, and then he has wisdom that comes after that. So then his wisdom will last. It will be an enduring wisdom. It will last forever. But somebody who his Yirat Shamayim is like secondary, his wisdom is what he cares about first, and then the Yirat Shamayim, says Rabbi Chaim Mendoza, en chokhmato mitkayemet. His wisdom will not last. So Rabbi Yonah tries to explain, and he explains beautifully, what does that mean that his Yirat Shamayim comes before his wisdom, or his wisdom comes before his Yirat Shamayim? And he says the following. He says, when a person studies Torah, so Torah study is very important and very effective on a person, but it has to have one precondition. And that is that a person has to, first of all, accept that he's going to do whatever Hashem says to do. Because now, in order for his wisdom to be effective and for him to remember what he's learning, it has to have some kind of meaning to you. In other words, if I right now start talking to you about some, let's say, foreign religion, about what they believe and about this and what that, it doesn't really have any effect on you. It doesn't make a difference to you. It comes in one ear, goes out the other ear because it's not relevant to you, right? Doesn't make any difference to you. So therefore, what happens is that if you're learning Torah the same way that it would be, let's say, a foreign religion, so then it doesn't change you. It doesn't affect you. It means nothing to you. It's not going to change who you are. It's not going to change your behavior. It's not going to do anything to you. So your wisdom that you're thinking about, it comes in one ear, goes right out the other. It doesn't have a powerful effect on you. So that's why he says, Kol shechochmato kodemet lirato. If his wisdom is the main thing, his wisdom is what comes first, and the Yirat Shamayim is second, so then it's not going to work. Because why does somebody get excited when he learns something? Because now he learns something new that means something to him. It has an effect on him. Oh, wow, that's the halakha? I didn't know that that's the halakha. Really? That's what that means? Oh, I didn't know that's what it means. That's what we're supposed to believe? Oh, wow, I didn't know that that's what we're supposed to believe. So really, the first thing is your Yirat Shamayim, your fear of heaven. Yirat Shamayim comes first. And then as you learn and as you grow, so then the things that you learn, they now mean something to you because this is what we do. We're Jews. This is what we believe. So what I'm learning now, it means something to me. It has an effect on who I am and what I believe. And now I learn and I grow. But if it doesn't mean anything in the first place to me, I could care less about it. It's like some foreign religion. It doesn't make any difference to me. So whatever you learn will come in one ear, go out the other. Chaval. So en chokhmato mitkayemet. Even if you gain something from it, it's not something that will last, unfortunately. So we have a question? Okay, guys, if we can mute ourselves there, that would be great. Thank you so much. Okay, great. Clear? So that's called chokhmato kodemet lirat cheto. That's no good. He needs to have first yirat shamayim and then the wisdom. So that's the prerequisite. Now, he goes on to the next point. Hu haya omer kol shema'asav merubim mechokhmato chokhmato mitkayemet. If he has more deeds, ma'asav merubim, he has more deeds than wisdom, then chokhmato mitkayemet, then his wisdom will last. But kol shechokhmato meruba mima'asav, if he has more wisdom than deeds, then en chokhmato mitkayemet, then his wisdom will not last. Now, what does that mean? More wisdom or more deeds? What does that mean? What is it? Deeds? What does one have to do with the other? Even.
You have to practice.
What's that?
You have to practice.
You have to practice, meaning you have to do what you learn.
Right. It's
Okay.
What counts more than
Very good.
thinking.
Very good. That's very true. You have to practice what you're studying. Very true. So the simple explanation that I saw over here is the following. Very interesting idea. They say that this means like this. If let's say you think, Shalom Aleichem, welcome.
Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. Welcome. They say if let's say you think that you're exempt from doing something, you are not obligated to do a particular mitzvah, let's say, right? So, okay, you're not obligated. But if you decide to just do only what you're obligated to do and you want to stay mediocre, then your wisdom will not last. Meaning, you're supposed to make an effort to make Hashem happy. You're supposed to find opportunities to do even that which you don't have to do. But if you know it's going to make Hashem happy, you want to do it anyway. Find opportunities. There are many opportunities that you can tap into, and they're not that big of a deal. I'll give you a simple example. Actually, an example that has to do with our host tonight. Beautiful, beautiful example. Something very simple, very lovely, and very we were before we renovated, we were looking around, we didn't have any clock to tell the time. So our dear host tonight went and he bought 2 clocks. There's something very simple. Right? He went and bought 2 clocks. He put one over here on this side so the people on this side could see, and one over there so the people on the other side could see. Beautiful. Now, any person that needs to tell the time in shul, if you look at the clock, he says, I know the time. You need to know what time sunset is, candle, you see? That's a little example of something small. Did Hashem tell you have to buy a clock for the shul? No. Does it say anywhere in halakha that you are supposed to buy a clock for the shul? No. But it's a little beautiful, small thing that any of us could do that is huge, because now everybody who tells the time, it's his zechut. Easy. Here's a person, he buys a set of mishnayot for the shul so that people could learn mishnayot. It's infinite zechut. Each mishnah that somebody learns with that guy's book, that's a zechut for that person. Easy moments of opportunity. So that's called ma'asav merubim. He knows that he's got certain obligations, he has to do certain things, but he makes an effort to make Hashem happy because he knows this will make Hashem happy. Here's a person that buys a tzedakah box for the shul. Now people can put tzedakah it's a little small thing, but it's a nice, beautiful, shiny silver tzedakah box that everyone likes to use. And that guy, because he bought it, now everybody's putting tzedakah in the tzedakah box. It's enjoyable to use it. Baruch Hashem, fantastic. So that's called ma'asav merubim michokmato. He knows what he has to do, what he doesn't have to do, right? He knows he does not necessarily have to purchase a tzedakah box for the shul, but he does it because he knows that that's an opportunity that every person that gives tzedakah or has a desire to give it because it's a nice, enjoyable tzedakah box, that's in that person's zechut. Easy. Baruch Hashem. It doesn't have to be a name on a building. It's small, but it's huge. It's still huge. You understand? Very important. So Rabbeinu Yonah asks on this Mishnah an interesting question. He says the following. Let's think about the words. What are the words of the great Rabbi Kaniel ben Dosa? Kol shema'asav merubim mechochmato. What does that mean? Literally, it means his deeds are more than his wisdom. So if your deeds are more than your wisdom, then your chokhmah will last. Asks Rabbeinu Yonah, I don't understand. How could anybody ever have deeds that are more than his wisdom? If you're doing something, that means that your wisdom is dictating that you should do it, right? So how does that work? What does it mean your deeds are more than your wisdom? It means if you're doing it, then obviously your wisdom is what's telling you to do that.
Like Naseh v'Nishma.
I can't believe you just said that. What do you mean by that? That's
First
amazing.
They do it and then they think if what they did is correct or not correct.
Wow. Mr. Yoram Saidian. Is your name Rabbeinu Yonah? That's amazing. That's unbelievable. Wow. Blew my socks off there. Kol hakavod. So let's elaborate. He's Esfahani, right? I'm sorry. Okay. So let's elaborate. Kol hakavod. Let's explain what you're saying. Beautiful. Wow. Says Rabbeinu Yonah. I'm going to read to you the words inside because I want to get it right. So I'll read to you his question. He says it like this. Yesh lish'or. Ech efshar liot ma'asav merubim mechochmato. How is it possible for your deeds to be more than your actions? How could a person possibly do something if he doesn't first know what he's supposed to do? If he's doing it, it means his wisdom is telling him what to do. Ela, zot Mishnah. He says, you want to know what this Mishnah is all about? He says, Eitzah tova kamashmalan. It's teaching us something very important. He says, what if you have a person that he doesn't know the Torah, right? He's somebody who doesn't know, but he doesn't want to, God forbid, get lost without Torah. So what should this person do? Yekabel alav la'asot et kol hadevarim asher yagidu lo chachmei doro. Person should accept upon himself at some point to do whatever the chachamim of that generation say to do. Meaning, I come and I say to myself, look, did I study the whole Shas? No. Did I study the whole Mishnah Berurah? No. Do I know everything? No. So then how can I say that I keep everything? The answer is, says Rabbeinu Yonah, accept upon yourself to do whatever the Chachamim of your generation tell you to do. That's what you have to do. I accept wholeheartedly to do whatever the Chachamim say to do. Now, he says, at this point, your ma'asim, your deeds are going to be considered more than your wisdom. Why? Because my wisdom is limited. I don't know much. I haven't learned much. I'm not that aware of everything. But the power of what you did is, by you accepting upon yourself to follow the instructions of the sages of your generation, what you've done is you have said basically like what the rabbis told, what the Jewish people did at Har Sinai. They said, Naaseh v'nishma. We will do whatever Hashem says, and then we'll learn. Then we'll figure out what are the details. But the first thing is we accept upon ourselves every word of the Torah Kedusha. So he says, by you accepting to do what the Chachamim of your generation tell you to do, then now it's as if you kept all 613 mitzvot. Because as far as you're concerned, you're ready, willing, and able to do anything and everything that is required of you. That's what it's telling you to do. So, kol shema asav merubim, meaning that you are a person that it's as if you did all 613. Ma'asav merubim mechokhmato. Your chokhmah, unfortunately, you haven't studied everything. You don't know everything. You're lacking in your knowledge. Okay, that's a lot of us. But our deeds are greater because we accept upon ourselves to be ready, willing, and able to do whatever Hashem wants us to do. We're soldiers. So now, I'll give you a beautiful pshat. You have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it true that when we do more deeds, good deeds, our body is more hungry to become wiser?
Sure.
So let's
Sure.
say, you said because we don't know, so we don't know what to do. Let's say we did 2 good deeds and we feel so good and say, you know what, that means there are more, therefore I can do more deeds and deeds.
Sure.
The more deeds you do, the more you
Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. You do one mitzvah, it gives you an appetite to do another mitzvah. Sure. It's a positive, 100%, yes.
Which is the higher level? Is to do something that even you don't know, but you still do the mitzvah because the rabbis told you to do, or the mitzvah that you know what is the reason that needs to do and you do it.
Right.
You still do it because you know what is the reason. You know that.
See,
you do
the
that
beautiful
mitzvah
thing,
because
the beautiful thing about Torah is even when you quote unquote know the reason, there's still so much more that we're unaware of. We never really know all the reasons. You see what I'm saying? We have an idea, we think we understand, we think we have a concept, but there's really so many levels to everything. So it's really always when we do the mitzvot, it's with a certain amount of awareness that there's so much that we don't understand. And we're doing it because we believe that Hashem He wants the best for us, and this is good for us by doing that. See what I'm saying? So there's a beautiful question that the Mefarshim ask, and with this we can really explain that. The Mefarshim ask, Yaakov Avinu came back from Lavan's house, and he sees that Esav is coming at him with 400 men, and he sends him a message. What does he tell him? He says, Im Lavan garti. I was living with Lavan. So Rashi says he was just telling him that I haven't really changed. I'm the same guy, right? And the second shot he says, V'taryag mitzvot shamarti. He says, and I was a shomer. I kept the taryag mitzvot, the 613 mitzvot. The word garti, gimel, resh, taf, yud. You turn them around, turn those letters around, you get taryag, right? Which means 613. So he was saying, I kept 613 mitzvot. And the Mefarshim want to know, how is it possible for one person to keep 613 mitzvot? It's not humanly possible, because some mitzvot are only for Kohanim. Some mitzvot are only for women. Some mitzvot are, only in Eretz Yisrael. There are lots of different scenarios for certain things. And I was once giving a class one place, like one of the Taryag mitzvot is to give your wife a get, right? So I was once giving a class. I said, "Does anyone want to do that mitzvah?" And one guy goes,
But just learning about the mitzvot is as if you were mekayem at the mitzvah.
What's that?
Learning about the mitzvah.
Oh, very nice. So Dr. Chado is saying very nicely that learning the mitzvot is as if you did it, which is true. That's a true statement. But what this beautiful sefer called Ber Yosef explains is exactly what the Rabbeinu Yonah says. He says what Yaakov Avinu was saying is, what does it mean? He didn't say I did all 613 mitzvot. He said I was a shomer mitzvot. What does it mean shomer? It means that I'm on standby. Shomer is a person, he's a guard. He's watching over the base. He's shomer. What does that mean? It means that he's saying, I accepted upon myself to do whatever Hashem wants me to do. That's what I accepted. Whatever Hashem wants me to do, that's what I accept on myself to do. So now, once you do that, once you accept to do whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to do, so now you are considered as if you did all 613. Why? Because whatever one of those 613 Hashem wants me to do, I'll do it. You understand? That's called, no, you don't, that's the point. You don't need to do it. You're a shomer mitzvah. Shomer mitzvah means I'm on standby. I'm a soldier. Whatever Hashem commands me to do, that's what I do. Because I'm ready, willing, and able to do it, so now I'm considered to be a shomer mitzvah. That's what Rabbi Yonah says we have to do. Rabbi Yonah says that's what Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa is teaching us to do. He's saying, listen, a person might not have learned everything. He might not know everything. But as long as he's starting off saying that I accept upon myself to do what Hashem says that I should do, that's what I have to do. So now, okay, you might not know everything, but you are somebody who's ready to do anything and everything Hashem wants. And that's the most that a person can do without necessarily having all the knowledge. Because he can say, look, whatever it may be, I'm in. I'm all the way in. So that will be a reason for somebody, for his wisdom to last. His wisdom will last because now that he learned something, so now it means something to him. That's part of my job. I accepted this job upon myself. I accepted to be a soldier of Hashem. This is part of that. This is part of me being a soldier of Hashem. So then I'm in. I'm doing it. So now this wisdom will hold on tight and it will last for him because it means something to him. He knows it's part of his mission in life to accomplish that. And this, Rabotai, is a good point that Rabbi Yonah makes, which is the idea of emunat chachamim. The way that he phrases it, I'll read it to you again one more time. He says, she'ekabel alav, that the person needs to accept upon himself, la'asot kol hadevarim asher yagidu lo chachmei doro. He has to accept upon himself to do all the things that the chachamim of his generation tell him to do, which is a very important thing to understand. I mean, I'll give you, we don't have a Sanhedrin, unfortunately, today. But there are times where you can see that the chachamim of the generation voice an opinion about something. I'll give you one very obvious and easy example. The rabbis, without a shadow of a doubt, in this generation have voiced their opinion that all internet needs to be filtered. Without a shadow of a doubt. There isn't a single rabbi out there that says that the internet should not be filtered. We know that this is the case because all of the junk and the garbage that's out there, it comes at you, it's thrown at you all the time. And how do you prevent that? I mean, you need to use the internet because it's your business, it's all over the place. You can't, I rented a U-Haul last week. I couldn't get the key without the internet. And it's just how it's like a pencil and paper nowadays. Unfortunately, is what it is. But it has to be filtered. Why would you expose yourself to the garbage?
There was a rabbi at APAC who called the internet.
Okay.
Get rid of it.
You had? Yeah.
He had the whole speech on internet.
Yeah.
Like we are not even supposed to go close to it.
Well, I mean, listen, I understand why somebody would say that because the damage is so heavy that it's terrible. It's really very bad. So, for example, the chachamim of this generation, I believe, have spoken with one united voice: filter your internet. I can't imagine anybody saying not like that. So, okay, so you go to the filtering company, you get a filter for the internet, right? It's a no-brainer. I have a filter. I have a filter on it. If you want to go see things you can't see, Baruch Hashem, you can't see it on my phone. I have a filter. I pay for it. whatever. It costs money, but it's a filter.
But still,
There's
there's
that,
a way, I heard there's a way to bypass this.
Yes, if you're really trying to bypass it, I'm sure you'll find a way to bypass it. But if you're not, you know what I'm saying? That's just an example, right? It's an example of something that the Chachamim of this generation said to do. It's important to be aware that is one of the cornerstones of the Jewish faith, which is the idea of emunat Chachamim, the idea that we have to have the faith that what the Chachamim of our generation tell us to do, we should do it because that's part of accepting the mitzvot, because they guide us, they explain things to us. It's the Torah Kedusha that lives in them that guides us. There's a story with the Taz. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Taz. The Taz is one of the famous commentaries on the side of the Shulchan Aruch. So Shulchan Aruch is the code of Jewish law. On the side of it, there's another commentary that explains the Shulchan Aruch and sometimes argues, sometimes agrees, and his name is the Taz, Rabbi David Halevi. And the Taz was once approached by a woman. And as he was sitting and studying the Gemara, and he was involved in a question on one of the commentaries on the Gemara, Tosafot. And he had a question on what they were saying. And he just figured out the answer to the question. And as that happened, a woman comes into his office and she's crying. This is a story from like 500 years ago. And she's crying. Her son is very sick. He has a big problem. It's really bad. Can you please give him a bracha? He says, I don't know about giving a bracha, but I'm going to give him the zechut of the answer I just gave to this Tosfot, to this commentary, the Tosfot. And with that, he's going to have a refuah shlema. And surely enough, the kid got better. Again, this was the learning of the Torah. That's the emunat chachamim that we have is for one reason, because when a Talmid Chacham learns Torah, it's not that we're giving him necessarily the kavod. It's that the Torah that he has studied is now inside of him. He's like a receptacle. He's a vessel. He's a vehicle. The Torah lives in him. When you speak to him, the answer, if you ask him a question, the answer you're getting is not from the person. The answer you're getting is from the Torah that lives inside of this person. It's an answer really from Hashem. That's the power of Emunat Chachamim. That's why, Rabotai, we can't deny what it says. We say every morning in Az Yashir, right? Vayaminu ba'Hashem uv Moshe avdo. They believed in Hashem and in Moshe, his servant. That doesn't mean that we believe, God forbid, that Moshe is a God. That's not what we were saying, God forbid. That's not the point. Targum Onkelos says, uvineviyut Moshe avdei, that they believed in the prophecy of Moshe, meaning that whatever words come out of this man's mouth are words that are coming to you not from a person, but rather from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara tells us many places that every generation, the rabbis, the leading rabbis of the generation are like Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why Rabbeinu Yonah over here says clearly, he says this person has to accept shekabel alav la'asot kol hadevarim asher yagidu lo chachmei doro. He has to accept to do everything that the Chachamim of the generation say to do. It's so important to understand that. There's a very interesting Gemara in Masechet Pesachim. The Gemara tells us there was a rabbi, his name was Shimon HaAmsuni. Shimon HaAmsuni had a thesis. His thesis was that every time you see the word et in the Torah, et is an interesting word. It does not have an English translation. There's no word that can explain. There is no word like that. It's just an introductory word to a noun. For example, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, right, or in the beginning of Hashem's creating of the heaven and the earth, right? So et.
The end.
Et hashamayim ve'et haaretz.
End, no? Like I am going to, it's like connecting the word with another word.
So let's not necessarily. I mean, for example, kabed et avicha. Et avicha ve'et imecha, right? Honor your father,
your mom, your dad, and
it doesn't.
End. The end is the end.
It's possible. It doesn't really have. The vav is the end. Vav means ve is end. Et means it doesn't really have an English translation. So this Rabbi Shimon HaAmsuni, he suggested a thesis. He suggested that there's no extra word in the Torah. And he got up and said, every time the Torah says the word it teaches you something else. For example, we just said, kabed et avicha ve'et imecha. Honor your father and your mother. And again, this word is there, it. It doesn't have a translation. Says Rav Shimon HaMsuni, you know what it means? It means you have to give honor not only to your mom and your dad, but also to your older siblings. Okay? Or maybe it means your father-in-law, right? Mother-in-law. You have to give them kavod too. Okay? The point is that the word et is coming to include other things besides what is mentioned. So the Torah mentions father and mother deserve respect. Et means that not only they, but also the older siblings, also the father-in-law, etc. So he went from the beginning of Bereshit throughout the entire Torah, Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and he gets up to Devarim. He's almost by the end, and he has an explanation for every single time the Torah says the word et. He comes to tell you what it's including besides what it says in the pasuk. He has an explanation for all of them.
What does it mean?
What? Shimon HaAmsuni. Okay. And then he gets up to one pasuk and he's stumped. It says, Et Hashem Elokecha Tira. You must fear Hashem. But again, which word does it use? Et. Et. Again, a word that is coming to include something else according to him. And he's stuck. Because you must fear Hashem. But it says et. That means you have to fear someone else too. But who could you fear besides for Hashem? So he was stuck. And then he turns around to his students and he says to them, Rabotai, I was wrong. And now he broke down his entire thesis that he's been talking to them, teaching them for the longest time. And he just got rid of the whole thing in one shot, just like that, because there's nobody else to fear besides Hashem. So if that word is there, and there's no one else to fear besides Hashem, it must mean that my theory is totally wrong. So the students were kind of shocked. They said, maybe say something, they have to figure, you've been doing this for so long, figuring it out. Figure out something to say. So he told them, Kishem she'ani mekabel sachar al hadirisha, kach ani mekabel sachar al hapirisha. Just like I get reward for my work and my effort expounding it, I also get reward for stopping. Because if it's not truth, if it's not emet, I'm not going for it. That's it. Came along Rabbi Akiva and said to everybody, he's not wrong. I'll explain to you what that word et is referring to. And they said, what is it referring to? It says, et Hashem Elokecha Tira, you must fear Hashem your God, lerabot talmidei chachamim. You also have to fear talmidei chachamim, which means Torah scholars, because they represent Hashem in this world. So by you fearing them, you're really fearing Hashem. So he saved the day. So everybody asks an interesting question. They ask, how come Shimon HaAmsuni didn't think of that? Right?
And
What? What was so different that Rabbi Akiva was able to see that? What did Rabbi Akiva see that Shimon HaAmsuni didn't see? So they say over, I believe it's from Rav Gifter, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, that what he saw was Shimon HaAmsuni. Rabbi Akiva saw that here's a man that's been working for years on this theory, trying to explain each time the Torah says et, and I can't even imagine how many times the Torah says the word et. And he's explaining each one, and he's working on it, and he has an explanation, and he finally gets all the way to the end of the Torah, and he's stumped on one, and he's willing to throw it all away, just because, in his opinion, maybe it's not emet. He says, such a person who's so God-fearing, who only wants what Hashem wants, that's just trying to find the truth and nothing but the truth, you have to fear such a person. You have to fear such a person. That is a person that's really all about Hashem and all about God in this world. So that's why when we talk about emunat chachamim, following in the orders of our Chachamim, Chachmei Yisrael, the reason is because they are truly a receptacle and a vehicle for the Torah Kedusha, and that's all they care about. And the Torah lives in them. Such a person like Shimon HaAmsuni, who's willing to give up everything that he worked for, because he thinks it's not emet, that person you have to fear. That's a person that really is all about Hashem. He's a representative of Hashem in this world. Very amazing story. Okay, now, one final mission over here, Rabotai. Again, Rabbi Kaniel ben Dosa. Look at what he has to say, amazing. Hu haya omer, the great Rabbi Kaniel ben Dosa, goes on to say, Kol sheruach habiriyot nocha hemenu, ruach hamakom nocha hemenu. Any person, if you want a litmus test, as they say, to know whether a person is beloved in Shamayim or not. Okay? Is this guy somebody that Hashem loves? Yes or no? That's the question. So if you want to figure that out, this is how you figure it out. Kol sheruach haberiyot nocha hemenu, which means any person that people are comfortable around, ruach hamakom nocha hemenu. You know that Hashem loves him. In other words, people are not uncomfortable around this individual. People are happy to be around him. So then you should know Hashem loves this guy. Okay? But if you have a person that people do not like to be around, people are not comfortable next to him, you should know Hashem also doesn't like this guy. Amazing statement.
But Rabbi,
An amazing thing. Okay.
there's some criminals that a lot of other criminals.
Good point. There are some very slick, smooth-talking criminals that are very comfortable and very pleasant to be around, and meanwhile they'll pull the rug from under your feet. Yes, I hear your point. But I'm assuming that we're talking about standard Torah-observing Jews. However, these are people that are very uncomfortable to be around. Okay? There's something that the Sharei Teshuvah calls a nirgan. Have you ever heard of this word? Nun Reish Gimel Nun, nirgan. Nirgan, Sharei Teshuvah, I believe, is in Chelek Gimel Siman Reish Lamed Aleph. And he says the following idea. There are some people, Shalom Aleichem, some people that are what we would call a negative Nancy. Familiar with negative Nancys? Right? This is a person that everything is a problem, everything is an issue. Let's say, a wife serves her husband breakfast, the eggs are too runny, there's not enough this, there's not enough that, no salt, no that. Everything's a complaint. They always have an issue. Some people, when they come up to you, you're already shaking because you know that this is going to be some kind of issue, some kind of complaint, some kind of problem, that's called in the language of Rabbi Yonah, and he quotes Psukim, it's called nirgan. This guy really is uncomfortable to be around, right? So says Rabbi Kaniel ben Dosa, Kol she'en ruach haberiyot nocha hemenu, person like that, en ruach hamakom nocha hemenu. So you should know for a fact that Hashem is not happy with this person. Not happy. I think I might have told you guys this story.
Somebody talked too much, say a lot of jokes.
Yeah.
Around him. So Hashem like him, he say a lot of jokes.
So yeah, the answer is yes. It's an interesting Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit.
Okay,
the Gemara talks about how you have a person.
Hashem love that.
It's brought down. Hashem loves people that make other people happy. That give them joy. It's a beautiful thing. Absolutely, for sure. So it's an interesting thing that you have people like this sometimes. I think I might have told you the story about when I was living in Brooklyn. I had a guy that would always complain. Whenever he would see me, he would always complain. Whatever I would do, it was wrong. I came to shul one time. I stood behind him. He was, I didn't start my Amidah yet, but he thought that I did. And he was so upset because now he has to wait till I finish the Amidah to take his 3 steps back. And then he finally finished and he was yelling at me, you're so inconsiderate, you're so this, you're so that. How could you do that? You're so thoughtless. I didn't even start the Amidah yet. He thought that I did, but I'm just, you're already guilty before, anything happened. And one time I brought my baby to shul. It was, she was a baby, and there was Rosh Chodesh Elul, and my wife went to work, and I had like a little gap until I had to bring her to the babysitter. So I had to do shacharit. So I brought her in. He sees the baby. How could you bring a baby to shul? What's the matter with you? How could the baby's gonna cry the whole time? Meanwhile, she was sleeping. But how could you do that? What's the matter with you? Blah 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 blah. And he was really giving me. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. Anyway, Hashem arranged for me that I should have revenge on this guy without even realizing. So another time I was in shul, and I didn't realize the guy was behind me this time. And I took 3 steps back. I had no idea there was a skinny guy, and I bulldozed this guy. He went flying to the wall. He was knocked out on the wall. And he was, I can't believe this. He stood up and he ran out of the shul. I didn't mean to do anything to him, but it happened. From then on, he was really nice to me. It was very true story. Hey, but this guy was what we would call nirgan. He's a complainer about every little thing. It's like it doesn't end. It's always complaints. It's a problem. You should know. That's a litmus test. Now, Rav Chaim Kanievsky brings down in his Sefer Orchot Yosher a Gemara, famous Gemara Daf Pei Vav in Masechet Yoma, and he explains over here. Rabbi Yona says, you want to know what it means to be Shem Shamayim Mitahev Al Yadecha, that people should love you and people should think that you are, the best person. He says this is what it means when it says that if you want to know that people love you, listen to this Gemara. He says, V'avta et Hashem Elokecha, you shall love Hashem your God. What does it mean? We say every day in Shema, V'avta et Hashem Elokecha, you shall love Hashem your God. What does that mean? You shall love Hashem your God. That doesn't just mean that you should love Hashem. It means you should cause other people to love Hashem. Sheyeheh Shem Shamayim Mitahev Al Yadecha, that the name of heaven should become beloved to people through you. How so? Sheyeheh Koreh Veshoneh, person that is learning Tanakh, learning Mishnah. Meshamesh Talmidei Chachamim, he serves Torah scholars. V'yeheh Masa'o Matano Benachat Im Habrot, when he does a business transaction, it's pleasant, it's comfortable. The guy's not trying to cheat you, he's not trying to rip you off. It's pleasant. What do people say about such a person? Ashrei aviv shelimdot Torah. How fortunate is his father who taught him Torah. Ashrei rabo shelimdot Torah. How fortunate is his rabbi who taught him Torah. Oy lahem laberiyot shelo lamdu Torah. Oh no to the people that did not study Torah. Ploni shelamad Torah. This man who studied Torah. Re'u kama na'im drachav. Look at how beautiful his ways are. Kama metukanim ma'asav. How perfect his deeds are. Alava katuv omer, regarding such a person, it says, Vayomer li avdi ata, Hashem says to that person, you are my servant, Yisrael, you Jew, asher becha et pa'ar, through you I am glorified. That, says Rabbeinu Yona, is the meaning of kol shiruach haberiyot nocha emenu, which means that the guy is a walking kiddush Hashem. He's a walking sanctification of God's name in the world. People know that this guy is honest, he's decent, he's a man of his word, he keeps to what he says, he practices what he preaches, he follows everything that the Torah says, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And everybody is so happy to be around this person because he's nice and he's friendly and he compliments and he's not quick to get upset and he doesn't blow a fuse quickly. Such a person is a Kiddush Shem Shamayim. That, says Rabbeinu Yona, is the meaning of Kol Shiruach HaBeriyot Nocha Hemenu, that people around him are so happy to be around this person because of how he conducts himself and how he deals with others. And they see that it's all a result of the fact that he is a Ben Torah, that he studies Torah, that he hangs around the right people, Talmidei Chachamim. They know that this is the reason for why he does what he does. It's an amazing thing. A lot of times people, they can really attribute a person's good midot to the fact that he learns Torah. I saw this when somebody sent me a video. There was a test that was done. It was Hollywood Boulevard. And some guy in a mascot uniform fell down onto the floor. And this was some kind of talk show or something. So they wanted to see, what will people do when they see the guy in the mascot on the floor? How will they react? So there was one guy jogging, he just jumped right over the guy, kept jogging. The guy's on the floor, he's nothing. People are walking by, looking at it, and that's funny. Everybody's walking by on Hollywood Boulevard, doing their business back and forth. And then 3 yeshiva kids walk by. And they see this mascot on the floor. And they say, wow, he probably needs to get up. And they help him to get up. And he stands up and he hugs them and he thanks them. Little do they know the whole thing is on camera. And but you see, these 3 yeshiva boys were B'nai Torah. And they know the Torah says, you see a problem, you do a chesed with somebody, you help them out, you don't just walk by. And that's why they did that. What a simple Kiddush Hashem, the little thing. You pick up the person that's fallen down on the floor. What a beautiful thing. That's Yisrael Asher B'chayit Par. Everyone could see that the reason that nobody else did that and that they did do that is because they learned Torah. It's a very simple equation. Many things like that. We can go on and on about that for a long time. But the point is, that's called Kol Sheruach HaBeriot Nocha Hemenu. That of course the guy is not only he's not complaining and he's not a negative Nancy, he's not a Nirgan, but he also is a Kiddush Hashem. B'ezrat Hashem, we should all have the zechut to sanctify Hashem's name in the world. We'll stop over here, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Yizkul mitzvot. Yes, we have one question. Why was he poor? So he was poor because Hashem wanted him to have a greater portion in the world to come.
Hanasi also was a big tzaddik, and he was very rich.
Yeah, but Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was very special. He said when he died, he lifted up his 10 fingers. It says Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi lifted up his 10 fingers to Shamayim, and he said to Hashem, you know that I did not even benefit from 1 pinky worth of Olam Hazeh. With all that I have, I didn't benefit even from a pinky of this world. So he had tons and tons of money, but he didn't benefit from any of it. That's a very special thing. So Rabbi Kaniel ben Dosa, to begin with, he said, okay, this is enough for me. Kav Charuvim, I'm good. Because if he wanted it, it seems like he definitely could have gotten it, which he did, but he said, I'd rather send it back like we started off with. All right, guys. Chazakim v'ruchim. Yes. If you have a question, we take questions now. Sure.